In the twilight of the Siberian boreal forest, where the cold is unforgiving and silence is a heavy cloak, a legend circulates that few dare to tell aloud. They say that in an isolated village called Koryak, mysterious disappearances have occurred. Since the winter of 1987, when a local hunter named Igor, a robust man of 48, never returned from his expedition. His body was never found, but accounts speak of somber echoes that arise on icy nights, voices that imitate those you love, calls that pierce the darkness and lead the unwary to the abyss. Valentina, a young teacher in the village, was the last to see Igor alive when he left carrying only his rifle and a suspicious look, aware that something in that forest was not natural. In her room, she still kept a leather-bound diary she began writing in the weeks following the disappearance, detailing the apparitions that haunted her, faceless figures that appeared behind the trees, shadows that contorted into grotesque shapes, and a cold that burned the skin. Around the same time, reports emerged of a creature the village elders called Zmeyevik, an ancestral spirit that controls the dead, trapping their souls on the threshold of life to torture them in an eternal cycle of agony. Whoever crossed its path, legend said, would never find rest, for the creature fed on fear, using it to extend its existence among the living. The most macabre case was that of old Andrei, a former soldier who tried to explore the woods to understand the phenomenon, disappearing after 3 days, leaving his cabin with signs of a brutal struggle. Walls scratched with strange symbols, and a strong odor of decay that even the dogs avoided. However, days later, Andrei reappeared in the village, with dull eyes and an expression of absolute horror, but did not speak a single word before falling dead in front of everyone. These events initiated a period of constant terror for Koryak. Young people began to disappear without a trace. Families were found mutilated, and the only thing that seemed to be present in all cases were traces of an invisible presence and a suffocating sense of oppression that made the air become unbreathable. The nights previously silent became the stage for piercing screams and indecipherable whispers, which seemed to come from the depths of the frozen earth. The truth is that no one knows for sure what happened because, after a strange fire that destroyed a large part of the village in 1991, Koryak disappeared from the maps, and whoever dares to approach the place, now covered by an eternal mist, never returns the same. However, the story does not end there. Years later, during a scientific expedition in 2003, paranormal researcher Natalia, 37, and her team discovered traces of ancient desecrated tombs, signs of macabre rituals, and recordings with incomprehensible sounds that seemed to call for the soul of whoever listened. During the last night, Natalia recorded a desperate account in her diary. While monitoring motion sensors in the forest, she heard a female voice begging for help in a language no one in the group understood. Shortly after, a team member was found dead, with injuries that seemed caused by invisible claws. The terror that befell the team resulted in immediate evacuation, but Natalia's diary was never found. What remained were only fragments of a curse that seems to cross time, a horror that hides behind the shadows of the icy trees. As the night progressed, the sense of unease grew among the residents of Koryak, and it wasn't just fear of the unknown, but a presence that made itself felt. An invisible weight that seemed to grab the soul and pull it into the abyss. In 2010, a young doctor named Arsene, 34, arrived in the region to help the neighboring village, isolated by harsh winters. During his stay, he began to notice phenomena that defied any logical explanation. Electronic equipment that turned off for no reason, shadows that passed through walls, and objects that moved by themselves in the silence of dawn. On a particularly dense night, Arsene witnessed the apparition of a pale woman with long and tangled hair who seemed to emerge from nowhere, screaming disconnected words. while her black eyes reflected an emptiness impossible to describe. He tried to talk to her, but the figure simply dissolved into the air, leaving a trail of a putrid smell that still torments his memories. A few days later, Arsène received an anguished call from the daughter of a local family, reporting that her father was missing. The child, only 10 years old, claimed that a woman of shadows had taken the man during the night. When Arsène went to investigate, he found the house completely destroyed, with walls scratched by invisible claws and marks that looked more like symbols of a forgotten language. In the backyard, a strange circle was drawn on the frozen ground, surrounded by a dark substance that no one could identify. The disappearance was never clarified, and local residents avoided any mention of Arsène's name, who soon left the region disturbed and shaken. But the horror was far from over. In 2016, a group of 3 urban hunters decided to venture into the forest near Old Koryak, motivated by curiosity and reports of inexplicable phenomena. Led by Mikhail, a 29-year-old photographer with a fascination for the supernatural, they entered the woods with cameras and recording equipment, willing to document something extraordinary. During the early hours, the atmosphere became oppressive. As if the air was charged with a malevolent energy, cameras began to fail, strange sounds echoed among the trees, and suddenly, one of them disappeared. First, without the others noticing, then a sharp scream cut through the silence, followed by a terrifying stillness. Mikhail and the other companion ran in search of their friend. But what they found was worse than any nightmare. A deformed figure with whitish skin and empty eyes was grabbing their friend by the neck, emitting a guttural sound that seemed to tear the very life from him. When they tried to rescue the man, they were attacked by this creature that moved with unbelievable speed. The only survivor, Mikhail, managed to escape with serious injuries, and in the recovered footage there is a chilling sequence. A shadow that contorts into human shapes, a macabre laugh, and in the last frame, a figure that seems to stare directly at him before the image is lost in static. This recording went viral on the internet, attracting worldwide attention and sparking debates about the existence of entities that live beyond human comprehension. But few know that, after that night, Mikhail disappeared without a trace. And the only thing left were the disturbing videos, which now circulate as a dark warning to those who dare to explore the limits of the unknown. And it is here that I want to take the opportunity to invite you who are following this story to subscribe to the channel, because many other macabre revelations and terrifying accounts are yet to come, especially from places where fear becomes palpable and death seems to whisper in the silence. Take the opportunity and leave here in the comments which of these accounts sent shivers down your spine the most, or if you have experienced something that made you question reality. I really want to know, have you ever felt the presence of something you cannot explain, or had an encounter that seemed to come straight out of a horror movie? Tell your experience so that our community can grow stronger, and together we can unravel the mysteries that surround human existence. Don't just stay in the darkness, share. That forest in Koryak seemed to be a portal to hell. After Mikhail's disappearance, the place was avoided by almost everyone, but not by everyone. In 2019, a young researcher named Elena, 28, specializing in paranormal phenomena, decided she would unravel the region's mysteries. She arrived in the village with modern equipment and unwavering determination, even with the warnings from residents about the curse that hung over that frozen ground. During the first few days, nothing out of the ordinary happened, just the oppressive silence of the forest and the biting cold that seemed to seep into the bones. But on the third night, when the wind carried almost inaudible whispers, Elena felt something strange around her, an invisible presence that made the air too heavy to breathe. As she walked along the narrow trail, the feeling of being watched intensified. Suddenly, a dry sound that seemed like a snap, followed by a muffled scream, made her heart pound. She tried to record everything, but the camera trembled in her hands, and the images captured only shadows and silhouettes. It was then that she heard hurried footsteps behind her, and upon turning she saw a tall, disfigured figure with glowing red eyes in the dark. Elena ran, but tripped over a root and fell. The last thing she saw before being grabbed was the face of that creature, which seemed a grotesque mixture of human and animal, an aberration that should never exist. The next day, her body was found on the riverbank, disfigured and with deep marks on her neck, showing a desperate struggle for life. Local police could not explain the origin of the wounds, and residents only said that the forest exacts its price. Elena's disappearance and death only confirmed that that region held dark secrets, capable of destroying anyone who dared to uncover them. Already in 2022, a group of foreign hikers, among them a marine biologist named Clara, 31, decided to visit the area during the summer when the ice melted and the forest revealed its hidden mysteries. They documented strange sounds, reported visions of lights dancing in the mist, and felt a growing sense that something was following them. Invisible, silent. On the last night, Clara woke up with a horrible feeling of suffocation, felt icy hands squeezing her neck, and before losing consciousness, saw dark figures approaching her and the others. When the others woke up, Clara was dead, with clear signs of asphyxiation, and the camera she was using showed disturbing images of entities that seemed to be between the living and the dead, looking at the lens with empty eyes and a macabre smile. This episode was investigated by specialists, but the official explanation never went beyond accident. However, among those who study the supernatural, the case became a symbol of the terror that haunts Koryak, a warning that there are forces beyond human comprehension, which are not content to be just legends, but seek those who dare to cross their borders. These stories may seem like fiction to those on the other side of the screen, but if you stop to think, perhaps there are places in the world where the line between the natural and the supernatural is too thin to be ignored. If you like these accounts, don't forget to leave your like, subscribe so you don't miss the next stories that promise to chill you to the bone, and share this video with someone who also appreciates genuine horror, the kind that leaves scars on the soul. What happened in Koryak was not confined only to those icy forests. There are reports coming from a small village on the shores of Lake Baikal in Siberia that seem to connect the events and reinforce the theory that something evil and ancient is awakening in that territory forgotten by time. In 2023, an experienced fisherman named Dmitry, 54, who lived on the lake's edge, mysteriously disappeared on a clear night when a full moon illuminated the icy waters. He was known for his courage and resistance to the cold, never having strayed far from home without company. That night, however, his boat was found abandoned, gently rocking under the starry sky, and no trace of Dmitry was found. Only the camera he carried hanging on the boat showed disturbing images, shadows emerging from the water, a thick mist enveloping everything, and a hooded figure that seemed to walk on the lake, looking directly at the lens with empty eyes. Even stranger were the reports from residents who claimed to hear distant screams coming from the lake, as if voices of lost souls cried out for help, followed by a feeling that something gigantic was moving beneath the surface, awakening and feeding on the fear of those who dared to defy the silence of that place. Those who saw Dmitry's video swear that even seeing and hearing, they cannot comprehend the totality of the horror recorded there, as if the human mind were incapable of assimilating such darkness. In a final story that takes us beyond Earth, it is said that in 2024, a team of Russian scientists conducting research at Vostok Station, under the frozen layer of Lake Vostok in Antarctica, detected unusual and inexplicable signals in seismic data. During a night expedition to collect samples, one of the researchers, Alexei, 36, disappeared without a trace. His colleagues reported hearing his distant screams cutting through the absolute silence of the base. But when they went to the location, they found only footprints that abruptly disappeared into an ice crevasse, as if someone had been sucked into another world. A few days later, audio recordings captured by the equipment revealed voices in unknown languages, distorted laughter, and a constant whisper that seemed to call them into the ice. The scientists were forced to temporarily abandon the base as the feeling of being watched by an obscure and ancient intelligence was unbearable. For them, what inhabited beneath the surface was not just ice, it was a forgotten prison for horrors that even time could not erase. These stories remind us that despite the advancement of science and technology, there are territories where man should never tread. That fear can be more real than we think, and that there are places and moments where death is the only certainty for those who cross the boundaries of reality. If you have made it this far, thank you very much for your company on this journey through the shadows. And I want to invite you to be part of our community, sharing your own supernatural stories or what these accounts awakened in you. Subscribe to the channel to continue exploring the world's darkest mysteries. Leave your comment saying which story struck you the most and what you learned from them. Because each account, no matter how terrifying, teaches us something about the fragility of life and the unknown that surrounds us. Here, we are all explorers of fear, and your voice is a fundamental part of this journey. Until the next encounter, and beware of the shadows that hide where we least expect them.